This is Image Bears. I'm Lacey Connor. I hope you all are feeling blessed and highly favored. Before we start, just wanted to remind you guys that if this episode or another episode has blessed you, please share. Sharing is caring. We like to make heaven a little more crowded. If you want to bless us more, there's a link in the bio for a donation because the podcast is listener funded. With that being said, let me introduce our next guest. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Now, Mike, I we met. Would you say was it just a regular podcast networking, or was it was Christian or just regular
Just
podcast?
regular podcast
Okay,
networking. Yeah.
which was it was the only networking podcast that's actually worked out with my schedule that I went to,
Yes.
and with that, I found you, so it was very profitable. Plus, I
Very
mean,
cool.
I did get some like good like little tips and stuff,
Yeah.
but I found you in it, and then we had a connection because my videographer Tony
Yes.
goes to your church and knew you and everything. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, color me happy. Right. So that was fun. And then you told me that what you do is you're a middle school youth pastor. And I was
Yes.
like, when you said that, I was like, oh, all the thoughts of middle school. Because it's a interesting time.
It
It's a
is.
hard time.
It is for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, research in ChatGPT told me, and then I researched 'cause ChatGPT sometimes lies,
Yes.
um, that middle school is actually the hardest time in your life, developmentally, spiritually,
Yeah.
and all around.
For sure.
And I was like, "Ah," so like it wasn't just me on the struggle bus. I was
No.
not alone.
It's a packed bus.
It
So
is
yes.
right. Amen to that. It is a packed bus. So yeah, so that just interests me more than like a normal youth pastor because middle school is just it's awkward plus the kids are awkward.
Yes.
And like once they get to high school, they're a little easier to like I feel like they're easier to read and they're easier to be like know where they stand and they're not just like goofing around.
Sure.
Like I volunteer on Sundays in like older elementary, so we have like 4th to 6th graders.
Okay.
But normally I lead mostly like the 6th grade group and stuff. It just always works out that way. I honestly would like the 4th and 5th graders better, but
Yeah.
I get the 6th graders. And I was just talking to my other co-leader and I was like, they were so like all over the place, rambunctious, just like
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what is going like y'all are I mean, like to me, they're grown. They're like, 6th grade about to go into
Right.
middle school.
Yes.
And I was like, what is going on with these? Like, I didn't know how to, I talked to her because I was like, I don't know how to handle these kids. Like, they're interrupting the video. They just weren't like in the small groups, like participating. Or if
Yes.
they were just like all over the place, like taking the markers when they weren't supposed to. Like, I felt like I was disciplining them like I do with my 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on? And she was like, it's just a time when they're trying to like be cool and they're trying to like, they're just trying to find their identity and all
Yeah.
that and stuff. But I was like, shoot. And then I thought of you and I was like, thank the Lord I'm interviewing Mike this week because it honestly is like, it was just a weird thing. Cause I was like, cause I'm used to, so before doing the podcast, I was a labor and delivery nurse downtown.
Okay.
So I'm used to having like 11, 12, 13-year-old pregnant women.
Okay.
So like I could work with that because they seem like, I don't know, I was used to that. And then I had these like, 12-year-old girls that were just like talking over each other, interrupting me. And I'm like, dude. So like I was used to these, but the co-leader was like, well, these were, like the pregnant ones had to grow up real quick. These
Yeah.
ones are,
For sure.
so I was like, oh, like this is what normal middle schoolers are.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it was an interesting thing. And I just felt like the Lord gave me this instance just for like this podcast.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I'm glad.
right? Sorry, I was thinking of this like Sunday because I was like, thank the Lord Mike's coming because it was an eye-opening thing because it is such a hard time and they are trying to be like cool and they do it in the weirdest ways.
Yes. Yeah. There's more. I think the research still shows developmentally, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, what's developing with their brain. The only comparable time of life to middle school is the toddler years. And so, like, parents joke about it, but there's real research that shows that's why some of the crazy stuff 3, 4-year-olds do. The same kind of thing is happening, but with older people who have more language, with middle
Yeah.
school. And they're trying to figure out, um, they're trying a lot of stuff on. Like by high school, they kind of know if they are good at sports or they're good at art or like they have an area that they like, and they might still be fine tuning that.
Hmm.
But in middle school, like everything's up for grabs. They have no idea. And sometimes they're dealing with parent pressure. Like the parent wants them to be this. Parents want kids in middle school to have the athletic thing figured out so they can get a scholarship for college that's 8 years away, and sometimes that's not what they're interested in, but they're also just trying to see I mean, their friendships change. In elementary school, they're pretty much friends with whoever is in class with them or whoever lives near them.
Mhm.
And then you get to middle school and it starts to be friends with the same interest as me. But the crazy thing is they're all trying to figure out what they're interested in. And so some of it is like, well, I can be the one who's the clown. I can get attention by being disruptive in a
Yeah.
class, or I can be the one who influences my friends. And so there's all this going on. And it is a hard and challenging time for adults to process. I think one of the biggest things is adults, just like you said, you hear that phrase, there are hard things that we go through in the middle school years. And for whatever reason, we tend to focus on those. And so then when we talk about middle school kids, we forget or we've blocked out that we were there. We were all there at some point,
Right.
and we should understand what they're going through and we should be compassionate and empathize. But instead, we're just like, would you knock it off? And we have expectations, and it's like they're still kids. Like they're some things they literally physically can't control and know how to deal with yet. And so it's part of why I love the age group because they are very much still kids and they can have fun and goof around. And one of the phrases we like to say is with middle school, they're trying to figure out if you like them. So if you
Mm.
like them, things are great. They get to high school is trying to figure out if they like you. Like, are you cool enough? And so
Right.
for me, it's like I have high schoolers that volunteer with me. I have students I work with all the way up through young adults. And but the middle schoolers, it's like if you genuinely show an interest, you can see. I mean, I've got some students I've watched change over the last few weeks simply because I asked them about things and had a conversation with them, and that interest changed and increased respect. They're still goofy middle school
Right.
boys, but that response towards me has changed because they see, oh, Mike actually likes me. He's not here because he has to be. Like he wants to be around us, and that lowered the guard. And now things are a little bit better that way. And it doesn't solve all my problems in middle schoolers,
Right.
but that little thing changes it when it's you showing the interest and connecting. And yeah, I mean, with middle schoolers, I love that they are experimenting, and there's so many aha moments of, like, kids going, "Oh, I didn't realize I was good at that," or, "I didn't realize I would like
Right.
that." But the same thing with their faith, because 'cause they're moving from concrete, like, literal thinking to abstract thought, and so much of spirituality, you have to have abstract thought. Like, God is
Right.
not someone you can look at or describe with words that make sense, and so for kids to have their own spirituality, they've got to process through that. And it is much more difficult. You can have a conversation with a high schooler or older that's on an adult level. With a middle schooler, you've got to figure out like how much do they understand. And it's almost like people talk about how smart someone is in an area.
Mhm.
But someone I had read or heard a while ago said, but the people who are the smartest are the ones who can take what they know and explain it to you at whatever level you're at. And that's what I see with middle schoolers. Like you've got to figure out if the group you have are much more concrete thinkers, you've got to anchor what you're explaining to them in things that make sense in the world around them. It just takes more work. Like it is hard,
Right.
but I love the challenge and I've enjoyed it. And I've been doing it. I mean, I've been in youth ministry for 26 years, and this is I've been doing over 18 years of working with fifth or eighth graders. And so I have found the group that I enjoy the challenge. Like it's a great
Right.
opportunity. So,
That's crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, that makes so much more sense, like, with, like, the younger like, when they get middle school, they're in that in-between time where it's, like, they're concrete and now it's abstract, because when we were on Sunday teaching, we were teaching about, like, John the Baptist when he said, like, "Jesus must increase, I must decrease," and we said that, and one of the like, in the big group, one of the girls, the 6th grade girls, was like, "Well, what does that mean? Does that mean I need to just demolish and just be like," and I'm
right.
like, not no, not exactly, like, but there she like, to her, she was like, "That means, like, she should just vanish, and it should
Yeah.
be all like," we're like, "No, not exactly," but that makes sense because they're trying to work through that, like,
Yeah.
the concrete with abstract, because it is, like you said, like, the Christian faith is very it is abstract, I mean, that's faith,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that is such a thing I never even thought about, that, like, it is, like, they're going through that, and I'm such, like, an abstract, like, oh my gosh, I love me some abstract thinking. And I mean, like, I mean, concrete, that's fun, like, that's what I do,
Yeah.
but, like, I like just like, "Oh, how does that work out?" Like, how like,
Yeah.
let's see the bigger picture, like, I love me some abstract thinking, so that's what cracks me up when you said that, I was like, "Oh, that's probably why I semi struggle with the 6th grade because 'cause I'm
Yeah.
kinda like it's that in between where I'm like, let's dive deep into it." Like, yes, that doesn't like, no, it doesn't mean you need to, like, demolish yourself, but you're not the main
Yeah.
character now.
Well, at the same time, so because of that, when it comes to spirituality, for the first time, they're starting to ask questions like, "Do I believe this?"
Right?
versus just accepting what their parents believe. When it comes to the concrete and abstract, they are and they're just and they kind of they experiment on and off. So you
Mhm.
might catch them on a day where it's really strong and they're really getting some stuff figured out, and you might catch them on the next week and they're like, it's not there. They're very much more in concrete land. So
Mhm.
you don't have a guaranteed like this kid gets it. It's like, well, he gets it this weekend. We'll see next weekend how it is. But they're also they're beginning for the first time to understand somebody else's perspective. Like
Right?
concrete thinking is I know what I think and how I see and
Mhm.
experience it. But then it's like, oh, have you thought about how like a parent will say, well intentioned, did you think about how this made somebody feel?
Oh,
No, they didn't. Like they either didn't have the capability or it's a new thing for them. And like for an adult, that's why we have to watch with sarcasm
right.
because sarcasm is taking things and not concrete, not literal. And middle school are learning what sarcasm is and how it works. But it's so easy as an adult to blow them away with sarcasm because it's a new thing for them. And
Mhm.
we're used to living in that world. So it's all these things that make it complex that it's like, yeah, we say things and I mean, I try to really anybody I'm training on teaching middle school students or working with them in a small group, like reading body language. Like if you have a kid who just kind of is looking at you,
Uh-huh.
there's something you said that doesn't make sense. Like ask them, try to get those questions out because and some of them, like that girl, will
I'm
be
like,
great and we'll share it. And you have to go, oh, and like this week I was talking to some high schoolers about, and when you're an elementary kid, David and Goliath, David throws a stone from the sling and knocks the Goliath down, and most kids think that's how Goliath dies. But
right.
if you read the next couple of verses, David goes over, pulls out Goliath's own sword, and cuts Goliath's head off. And then he's appearing before the king and he's holding Goliath's head. You don't have that in a children's lesson, right? Like, that's crazy.
No.
But middle schoolers love those kind of stories of like, oh, there's more. Like,
Yeah.
I get to be in on the rest of the story now. I don't know, like, what you do with that is it's a great gory story, but for them to wrestle through things or even to see the different emotions of Jesus or to see the disciples who don't understand. I mean, if you just look at how many times either the disciples said they didn't understand, one of the gospel writers said the disciples didn't understand, or Jesus asked, "Don't you understand yet?" Like,
Right.
that's always encouraging for me of like, okay, if these men who spent and some of them could have been teenagers, but if they spent 3 or more years every day with Jesus,
Right.
and they still needed help understanding things, then for sure, these young adolescents that are going through all these changes with us, they're gonna need help from just in your home as a parent raising them to get into matters of spirituality and trying to help them understand these truths that it is you have to have the mindset of it's a journey. You're not gonna hit a destination in
Right.
middle school.
I know. That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
the journey. It's
Yes,
the
it
jour
is. It is.
All right. So you, mentioned that you've been was it 26 years in youth and
Yeah.
then 18 in middle school.
Yeah.
Why haven't you I felt like in the church, most people, like, start in youth and then they, like, move up to something else.
Yeah.
You have stayed there.
Yeah.
First, what called you to youth, and then why have you stayed there?
Sure. I was trying to think. I know people who have stories of like I was at camp and I got this calling,
Right?
and I don't have that story. I feel like mine is like you'd have to stream the whole season to get the story of my calling. Like
Right?
it's
Ah, you're
not
one of
not
the
one episode. Yeah, but
right?
because like in high school, I was in a science class when someone asked me if I ever thought about teaching because of how I was able to explain what the teacher just said in a way that made more sense to them,
Mhm.
and that's an ability I have. It's a spiritual gift I have, and so there was that, and then I like, cross-cultural work, missions work,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, and I'm 48, so working with 10 through 14-year-olds, it is very cross-cultural. I'm a Gen Xer working now with Gen Alpha, and then Beta is coming, behind them.
Right.
Hopefully, they get better names, but
Right.
and I've taught Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. Yeah, I raised Gen Z kids. So part of that journey, I thought I was going to go into teaching. I was going to be a middle school, high school, like secondary school teacher, English and math, and then I got into Bible college and got into ministry and got to experiences came along, and I
Mhm.
began to realize I was really enjoying the time with the students more than just like, "Hey, I'm gonna teach at the school and be a volunteer at church." People were pointing out, like, the fulfillment I was experiencing was from what I was doing as a volunteer, and that led me on the path of going into youth ministry, and, I've stuck with it because I think when I got into it, I didn't have a long-term plan. Like, some people go into youth ministry because who's gonna hire a 22-year-old preacher, right? Like, it's hard to find
Right.
a spot like that. So they do it developmentally to work into that process.
Mm,
And some, there's nothing wrong with that as long as they're giving their all where they're at in youth
mhm,
ministry. For me, it was I compare myself more to like if your kid has a great teacher they like,
mhm,
you don't question if that second grade teacher never becomes a principal. You know, my kids
right,
had some great social studies teachers in middle school. They still aren't college professors, they aren't principals or administrators, they're still teaching middle school kids, and that's why I look at that even though it's different from the stereotype, but I could also point out several friends I have that depending on how the church grows, roles might change, like, I have more leadership responsibility and opportunity now that I've been at my church almost 20 years I did when I started, but I feel like it's been such a great fit for me like some of the things I talked about with middle school is that this age group, I really connect with them. I understand them. I've spent a lot of years studying youth culture and how to connect with them and what's going on, trying to keep up with the slang and the emojis and what's going on.
right.
And so it's been so that calling, it's just been over and over. God's given me little nudges in that direction. And now I spend a lot more time encouraging and developing leaders, both volunteers at my church and staff at other churches and sometimes that's somebody who's new and young wanting some advice. They'll be nice and call me a veteran, but they mean I'm old in youth ministry.
They call you a veteran.
Yeah,
It's
because
a
in
nice
like
way of
professional
saying,
sports, I had to retire by now,
right.
So, but then I also have some older people in ministry that reach out because of that same question, like, "How are you still doing this?" And
Right.
I'm at a healthy church. It's been a great fit for my family, but ministry-wise, God just confirmed over and over again, this is my age group. Like, I visit friends across the country in different churches,
Mhm.
and when I walk into a room of middle schoolers, wherever I am, I feel comfortable in there. I've had kids come up to me thinking I was a leader in the room because they didn't know any better. It's been great, but I get like, and it's not as different. Like there's the differences among middle schoolers doesn't seem to be as great across the country, from Southern California to Midwest Indiana. Like they're into some of the same stuff, and
Yeah.
so I love getting the opportunity to work with them or their leaders and help them in their faith. And um, gosh, probably early in my ministry days, I got in the book Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren.
Oh, yeah, no, that was a big hit back then.
And I here's when I got it though, it was from a well-intentioned family member who didn't know what kind of gift to get the youth pastor. Like,
Uh-huh.
they're always like, "I should get him something Christian," and I was like,
Because it's a pastor, that's it.
"Yes," right?
Every time, it
Yes.
gets me sometimes,
And
yeah.
so they got me this book, and I was like, "I've already read Purpose Driven Youth Ministry. I've read Purpose Driven Church. I'm familiar with, Saddle. I know all that stuff." So I kinda dismissed the book and just left it in a
Mhm.
pile, and then for whatever reason, I got up and read it one day, and a lot of it was review. The principles were similar to what I read before, but there was one chapter that a man named Eric Reese wrote with Rick Warren all about your shape. It was an acrostic for your spiritual gifts, your heart or your passion, your abilities, your personality, your experience. And I read through that and I started writing down like next to spiritual gifts, like for me, teaching is one of those. Um, for heart or passion, it was the local church and it was helping working with students like preteen through teenage. That was a big passion. I was going to be a teacher with that age group. Like that's
Yeah,
I just connected with that. With abilities, I learning with creativity, with my nerd hobby of presentations, but that's allowed me to help with teaching with students and technology. Even I've always loved technology and figuring out how to use that to engage students. Um, Personality, I'm an extrovert. I don't know a lot of like the Enneagram stuff. I know I'm a seven,
right.
so I like to have
Okay.
fun, but I don't know like much more than that with it. But I know that I'm outgoing and encouraging and a promoter, and that helps with the youth ministry. And then God's used a mixture of good and bad experiences from like great teachers I had. And I learned my greatest lessons on humility from Mrs. Bargaman, my grammar teacher in middle school. She pulled me aside one day because she was passing out tests,
Uh-huh.
and I was a nerd. I was a really good student, really
Aw.
bad at sports. I always tell the students, I was like, "Listen, in sports, you have the starting 5 in basketball, you have the 5 on the bench that come off, and then you have, like, some kids who might get to play in practice." I was in that group over there. And so, like, I would get ready for practice, and I didn't even know if I was gonna get court time in practice for basketball, but in the classroom
In practice too.
in the classroom, that's where I shine, and so when
Uh-huh.
she would hand back tests, she would talk about the grades, and I remember just being super confident and, prideful is definitely an accurate description, where I was like, "Okay, give me my A, here we go,"
Right.
and we're sitting at and our desks were arranged in groups of 4. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember that, and then she pulled me over, and I legitimately thought, "I'm going to her desk to get some kind of compliment from her, from
Right.
what a great student I am." And I remember her looking at me, and she was the teacher that had, like, the glasses that she would slide down, her
Uh-huh.
readers, and she asked me if I knew what ego was and what pride was, and
She called you out on
so
like
she did,
that?
and I remember thinking like, "I don't know, but I guess there's something good about it," and so and then she explains to me and she said, "Do you" and again, part of this is that middle school not having empathy yet.
Yeah.
She said, obviously school comes easy to you. Like you get it. This is where you shine." But she said, "Do you know some of the classmates that sit with you in that table group, they have to work harder than you to get a C. Like for them, that's the best they can do." And when you are just talking about how easy it was and how of course you got an A, they're feeling really frustrated because they did all they could and a C was the best they could get. And I felt so small. I was like, no, like legitimately. And at the time I didn't realize it, but now I
Yeah.
look back and go, I had not thought through another perspective. I'd only thought through mine.
Yeah.
And so I got this great lesson on humility from Mrs. Bargman. I had great teachers all the way through school and people from church and other areas that influenced me. And so that was the person I wanted to be for students. I
Mhm.
wanted to be that one because I know not everybody has that in their home. Kids struggle with divorce or broken families or whatever. Like they need someone they can lean into and trust, and just encourage me in that process. And I've stuck with it, and it's just been affirming over and over again that now I get to help leaders like that. I get to help parents like that. My coworkers now are the same age as my kids, and so it's crazy that I just get reminded how old I am. But I think just like a teacher who's really good at their subject may not ever be an administrator.
Mhm.
I know, and my wife would 100% support this, that I'm not cut out to be a lead pastor. I can teach and preach, but there's so much involved in that lead role that's not a good
Right.
fit for me. And so I come back to that shape every time of like when I read all that, I was like, oh, this is what I should do. And even the church I'm at, when I came here 18 years ago, they had two positions. They had a high school youth pastor and a middle school youth pastor. And that's unusual, but they're a large enough church that they had both of those open. And
Yeah.
I was like, I think I want to apply for the middle school position. And I reached out to my old youth pastor and I asked him, I was like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you think? And he said, well, he goes, you're all about that shape. Like, you know who you are, that you're a good fit for this. And he's like, two things. Number one, if you choose middle school, there's no competition. Like, no one wants that job. So you have job
Aw.
security. He's like, you're not gonna
Right?
people want the higher, like it seems more glamorous, at least in church world, to be the high
Yeah.
school pastor. And so you won't have any problem with job security. And he's like, but if it's a great fit for you, it could last a lifetime. And that was 18 years ago. And I was like, yeah, like I was 7 years in youth ministry and I had worked at a small church where I was with nursery through high school.
Uh-huh.
I worked at another church a little bit larger where I was junior high through college. And so when I got to this one, I was like, yeah, I really everything about this age group, I like that part of it. It was a great fit for who I am, how I'm wired. I love helping students do the hard work of wrestling through things for the first time and just seeing them have those aha moments and begin to own their faith and
Right.
start that journey. And sometimes I also get reminded of humility because there's kids I work with and my team works with for 4 years and they get to be a junior in high school and it finally clicks for them. And and I'm like,
Right.
we did so much work, but it's a team, it's a
It is,
family,
yeah.
we're all working together, and so, yeah, I've loved it. It's been confirmed and encouraged, and, um, I keep getting asked, like, how long I'll keep doing this, and I was like, "I don't know," like, I could see myself retiring doing this. I love developing the next generation,
Mhm.
and, I wanna make sure that people continue to work with this age group and help them to know and follow Jesus, and I'm passionate about that, and that's still there, so I keep going.
Right.
Yeah,
I love that you're because I feel like it's so hard to see, like, older I don't know, I feel like in the youth thing, it's like you don't see a lot of, like, older people in youth. It just always seems to me, I've seen, like, like, it's, like, the 20s, maybe, like, early
yeah,
30s, and then they always just, like, move up. But
yeah.
I'm like, there still needs to be, like, sages in the
Yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean? Because I feel like me growing up, like, how I was in my 20s and now I'm at 36 and stuff, and
yeah.
just how, like, different it is and
Oh,
how
yeah.
it like, what you're dealing with, and even, like, just, like, life, like, you need someone older older to be in youth
Yeah,
because it's fun. I mean, like, the younger people, yes, can, like, be more, like, understanding of the youth because they grew up,
right.
something I struggle with is, like, I didn't grow up with, like, cell phone like, I think, like, I was 17 when I got my first cell phone and
Okay.
stuff, so, like I was so, like, once I started driving, I borrowed my mom's phone, and then finally she
Yeah.
let me, but, like so I
Yes.
never I mean, like, I grew up with, like, MySpace when I was in the
Yeah.
middle like, you know what I mean? So, like so now, like, even I'm not even that old, but now, like, we have that trouble of navigating, like, my kids are 7, 5, and 2,
Yeah.
and just navigating, like, all that stuff now.
Yeah.
And, like, so it's good to have the younger people, but I think there still needs to be older like, an
Yeah.
older person. So I appreciate, like, you staying in
Well,
there.
good. And I can tell you, like, I have several friends around the country that are doing, youth ministry or even specifically middle school ministry and have stuck with it for a long time. I think the ones that are younger that do really well, they've got all ages in their volunteer team. Like,
Mhm.
you've got some grandparents. Like, I remember visiting a church, and they brought a guy up on stage, and he was there to celebrate the church and, like, their anniversary, and they
Uh-huh.
said, "Is there anything do you wanna say to the congregation?" And this guy was he's past retirement age, so late 60s, early 70s,
Uh-huh.
and he had on a youth ministry t-shirt, and he was like, "Volunteer in junior high." Like, he was all
Oh,
excited,
I love
but it was
that.
like, kids need to see that. I mean,
Yeah,
and kids connect with their grandparents, so it's a
yeah,
great fit, and that's why, I mean, now if you look at my volunteer team at our church, it's from high school students who are working with our middle schoolers up to young adults that are in their 20s, either in college or just out of college, all the way up to, people my age or older
mhm,
that are walking in there and going, "Okay, we're gonna help this next generation out." And they do, and there's different I mean, different personalities, people connect with kids differently.
yeah,
But the teachers I mean, the teachers in the local middle schools we have that do a phenomenal job with the students, some of them have been doing it 20 years or more, and they've stuck with it. They haven't moved on to anything
right,
else. And some people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
mhm,
man, for those of us who get to stick with it, I would say I'm one of those people who gets to say, I love what I get to do, and I can't believe this is my job. This is such a great fit for me, and I enjoy it. It is for sure work. Like, just keeping up as much as I love technology, keeping up with everything and the terminology, like
right.
watching what I use. Um, I don't know how long it will last, but the 6-7 thing is still big,
I know,
with
right?
students, and
Oh, you're telling me,
it'll catch
yes.
me off guard, and I'll forget about it, or I'll do it on purpose, but I love that goofiness with those students, and I love that, yeah, that we get to share. There are times I catch myself, though, going, "Okay, this illustration won't work," because they've like, even my coworkers, I'll mention a movie, and I think, "Oh, everybody's seen this
Right,
movie," and no, and I'm like, "Okay, I have to go keep up with culture too," so I have current day illustrations,
yeah,
or sometimes I'll just ask one of them, "Hey, you're a 15-year-old, I'm teaching 10 to 14-year-olds. If you were gonna talk about this topic, what movie or show, like, what video would you talk about?" And they help me out a lot. So sometimes it's leading into people like that where I know, yeah, they're not gonna connect with my illustrations from 1996. They that was 10 years, 20 years before they were born,
right.
so yeah.
That cracks up 'cause that's so true. I was, serving with the middle school, and we were watching some video, and they talked about Blockbuster and, like, the, like, thing of it, and someone
Yes.
looked at me like, "Did that really exist?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "What do you mean? Like, what did you guys do?" I was like, "Well, normally on the weekends, we would go to, like, the movie like, we would go rent movies, and there was a time when there were VHSs, but then, like, I'll go with the DVDs to be a little more recent." And I was like, "Yeah, no," like, I would have to get there early, and sometimes, like, I would have to in my mind, like, "This is my first choice," but sometimes I didn't get my first choice, like and they're like, "What? There was no streaming back
Yeah.
then?" And I was
There's a
like,
limit, like, there's a
"Right,
limited quantity, they don't know
right,
that.
yeah, no," and I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh,"
The
like
library is the closest they have to that experience,
right,
where you can even check out digital books, there's only a certain number
yeah,
available, but streaming, it's like everybody can watch the movie, there's no limit.
right,
They don't know the idea of, "Oh, I didn't get there early enough for a new movie release, I have to
right,
wait for it," and
and they
yeah,
didn't even know, like, what a CD was and stuff, like, I said
yeah,
something about, like, "Oh, yeah," and they listen, "Oh, yeah, I had the CD," and they're like, "What is a CD? Like, what's a CD?" I was like,
yeah.
like, it's, like, around," and they're like,
But
"Oh."
what's funny is they're also very interested in vintage stuff, so
Oh,
they're
yeah,
they're
no,
into vinyl now, and they're into real books, and so
right,
sometimes it's like, "Oh, okay, we can come back around to that now."
uh-huh.
But yeah, there's a gap in there of things they like, Be Kind, Rewind, they have no
No,
idea,
right?
so yeah,
I
yeah,
know. So even mine, when I find I'll
yeah,
make illustrations and they'd be like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." Like, "You
yeah,
don't know." I'm like, "I don't even think I'm that." I mean, like, I still don't realize I still don't feel like an adult. Like, I am. I have 3 kids. I feel
yes,
more adult because we added on to our house, so it was, like, a good amount of money, so, like, I had to be an adult. But other than that, like,
yes,
so I get it and stuff, but it just does cracks me up that, like, I have to think the same thing, like, "Okay, what would be relevant now?" and stuff. Like, I have a
yeah,
brother who's, like, like 25, and and he's a high school math teacher, and
Yeah.
I have to ask him, like, "What's the lingo? Like, what's a good thing? Like,
Yeah.
what are the kids talking about?"
And
So
it
then
changes. You
it
gotta be
does.
on top of it.
Oh my gosh, it does. Because I see him every Sunday, and I'll, like, ask him and stuff because we have our movie night every Sunday, and I'll be like and, like, yeah, he was teaching, my husband and I some new lingo
Yes.
the last Sunday, and I was like, "What? What's this mean?" We had to, like, Google it. Like, he had to explain it to us, but I was like, "Oh my god," like, thank I mean, the Lord put him in my, my I mean, like, he's been in my life for a while, but,
Yes.
like, for this time, because 'cause I'm like, I need his help with
Yeah.
that and stuff. But I love also that you show some humility and stuff, that you're not like, "I'm old, I don't need to, like, ask other people about illustrations. I got this," and
Oh,
stuff.
right. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
one of the greatest lessons I learned early in ministry was to be a lifelong learner, and
Right.
I've always had a curiosity that helped me with that, where I wanted to know more. Um, I definitely nerd out, like, some of my favorite movies are documentaries, like, I love the behind the scenes stories.
Me too.
Um, my kids joked that we went to visit Disney for the first time, and they had all these they're young, they had all these great souvenirs, and what's dad have? A pile of books about the Imagineers, about how the park was made, and, but yeah, with ministry and with students, it's learning, and that's why I get inspired by great local teachers. It's like
Mhm.
they're not complaining about technology, they're figuring out how to use it, or, like, instead of going, "Oh, man, these kids just use AI to do all their papers." So the teachers I know that are adjusting to that, they're just bringing out, "Here's some paper,
Uh-huh.
write this out for me in class." Like, they're figuring it out,
Ah,
and so
yes.
I'm always inspired by that of thinking through how can we utilize technology to help kids connect,
Mhm.
and then how do we do things that are and, like, we print out papers for kids to take notes in service, because also what I learned is that middle school, while they're learning everything else, they're learning technology. So,
Yeah.
there's some great organizations like Wait Until 8th and Protect Young Eyes that make a big push for, no cell phone till 8th grade, no social media until 16, even then just 1 account. I know that's not the majority of families that follow that advice.
Yeah.
I am seeing with schools banning phones and devices, even schools going away from the one-to-one device things, that some of that's being taken care of out of parents' hands. Like,
Yeah.
kids can't have the phone at school, kids can't have their devices, and uh, man, when the parents I work with, it's just been a challenge of, like, if you can set it up and they wait, and maybe they have just a real simple phone throughout middle school, and then when they get to 8th grade, they get to have a smartphone, and you still have limits. But you've got to, as a parent, learn how that device works. You've got to find somebody that will help you so you can be a good parent on that thing with your kids.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're a parent who's, like, struggling with that, then it's going, okay, set limits, but also model those. Like, the most convicting thing for me as a parent is I'm telling my kid, "Hey, quit looking at your screen and look at us in the face. We're right here." And then my kid looks over and I'm on my phone.
Right.
It's like, "Oh,
Oh
it
my
it only
gosh.
applies while you're a kid. It doesn't apply to your adult." It's like, no, you've got to model it all the time. And
Right.
I even heard recently from a dad who was at a practice, which practices for kids are not exciting to sit and watch all the time. But he was counting how many times his daughter looked over at him during practice, and he saw that because he wasn't on his phone. But he said, I had to make a conscious effort to make sure I put it away so I could watch and so I could engage with what was going on.
Mhm.
And I think for parents, that's a big thing, like modeling that. I mean, I on my phone, I have screen limits for Instagram, because I know I can get doom scrolling, I can
Right.
get
Oh,
lost,
it's so
even with the
easy.
greatest of intentions,
Right.
and so when I tell students, like, "Listen, there's a value of that face-to-face interaction, there's a value of being with people," I've gotta model that, and so those things are set up on my phone, and they know if they're with me that I won't be on it past the time I have set, and it's one of those things of you've gotta keep up with those things. I'm not an expert on it, but I also this is where I earn points with middle schoolers is I'll be like, "Oh, you've got that? How does that work?" Or, "That's an
Yeah.
app you have, that's a game you play." They'll tell you all about it, and they love being the expert, and they love being the one who teaches, and sometimes you genuinely learn things you didn't know from them, and then
Right.
sometimes you realize they don't know as much as they think they
I
do. There's
know.
a place for us to still help them and guide them, and that's great because they might know how the technology works. They don't always realize how the technology affects them. And
Right.
so us helping guide them through that process, just like it would have been before social media with stranger danger or how do you navigate, like if we're gonna drop you off at the mall, like things like that that used to be. Now it's, well, when you go online, don't trust everybody you interact with. People can pretend to be a different age, and not being paranoid of things, but teaching them the same kind of smarts and skills that you would have in person,
Yeah.
teaching them that with devices. And with middle schoolers, man, parents should be checking their chat. They should have access to their devices. They should be getting on there because that's responsible parenting. Your kid is not mature enough to handle that on their own, and we see just too many news stories where it goes in a
Right.
bad way, and so when parents are engaged, and I think if there's that humility of the kids see, "Oh, my mom and dad is willing to learn from me. That's cool." That helps earn some respect, right? Helps move through
Right.
it. Because I think the most recent study I've seen, when you ask kids, like, who are the most influential people in their life, parents still rank really high. The kids don't always act like it, but they
Right.
are watching, and they're watching to see our behavior. Does it line up with what I mean, in middle school, they're looking at that like, does our behavior line up with our words? Or we expect this of them? Are we acting different because we're adults or because we have a different standard we've set for us that is inconsistent with that? And that's hard, but,
Mhm.
it's been accountability, it's been a
Right.
challenge, and I love having those conversations with students, kinda helping them navigate that and helping parents with that, and it's been really good, so
Right, no, that's I mean, that's so true. Because I think about it in my own, like, growing up and stuff, and, like, I love my parents, but there are some times when they would say one thing and then they would do the opposite and stuff,
yeah.
but, I mean, like, it's like but it also shows that, 1, now that I am a parent, I know we're not like, we're all broken people just trying to
Yes.
follow the Lord, so,
Yes.
like, not but, like, that it is something to really think about because they are really watching and stuff, and
Yeah.
you have to it's just that, like, intentional parenting, which is it's hard,
Yeah.
but it's worth it, like, so you do like, it helps your children and stuff, and it's like you said, that's so funny that parents are still like, one of the most influential, but yeah, they will not the middle school will be like, "No, so and so this and that and stuff."
Yeah.
That cracks me up. How do you think social media has affected, like, middle schoolers and stuff? Because I saw from a statistic that, like, 70% of middle schoolers still suffer from, like, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that, and they contribute to social media. But, you read those, but, like, you actually interact with middle schoolers.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I see I think it affects high schoolers more
Really?
because more of them are on it.
Mhm.
I mean, technically, legally, uh, with the COPPA rules, kids under 13 shouldn't be on social, and unfortunately, parents let them lie about their age and get on there, but
Yeah.
the whole idea of the fear of missing out, the FOMO is real. It used to be if your friends had a party and you were invited, unless they were talking about it around you, you had no idea.
Right? That's
Now
how
in
it was with
real
me.
time, you can see that you're not at the party everybody else is at.
Yeah.
And so kids, they deal with it, or they want to post they've got the newest shoes or what they've gotten the best vacation. Like the comparison is
Mhm.
just fueled by that. And they can be sitting in a room full of their peers and feel alone because they weren't a part of what's going on or they don't fit in that. And I see a lot of that from studies that as much as social media, I mean, it gets a legitimate bad rap for the harm it can cause.
Yes.
It should be a great tool to also connect us. But with students, I think it's one of those things that if they're looking at it and comparing themselves, their status, I know the older kids, like teens and young adults, do a lot more of like curating their feeds where they only keep certain pictures. Like
Yes.
my
Uh-huh.
kids look at my social media and go, "Dad, there's stuff on there from, like, 20 years ago," and I was like, "Yeah, why wouldn't there be? Like, you have 12 pictures." Like, I don't understand. So kids get caught up in, like, what do they think of me?
Mhm.
They can get consumed by it, and so but again, their brains are just beginning to understand somebody else's perspective,
Yeah.
so they're making a lot of assumptions that they don't know if they're accurate or not based on what they post or don't post. And that's why, man, if a kid has social media and they're in middle school, setting limits, paying attention to it, there's a great tool called Bark that helps like monitor interactions and especially like language in messaging because
Okay,
of the
right.
high rate of suicide and the depression, anxiety. It'll watch for flag words. They're just tools that parents need to go look into to parent well. Just like a lot of them are probably familiar with Life 360. They know
Yeah.
physically where their kid is at. But it's like, do you know the same kind of information? And not to be a helicopter parent and to stalk like every move, but that's
Right.
why I think if you can bring some limits in to like, "Hey, we're not gonna use the phone at the dinner table, right?
Mhm.
We want you to interact with us in person." That continues to show, such great positives in how that helps them with their self-esteem, their identity, to fight against anxiety, when they see and interact with their family, even if it's only a few times a week, having that meal together at the table, and they learn how to interact in a social setting, like, they know
Right.
what how to engage, and, so there is dangers and risks. Now, they also, just like adults, can get great tips. I've seen a lot of posts now about mental health. I've ironically seen a lot of posts about doing screen-free
Oh,
experiences
yeah, that's the
is a big thing. But like, I mean,
Right.
if people are going there and doing that as young adults, what if it was like, hey, Saturday is going to be device-free day. Like we're
Right.
gonna go outside. If it rains, we're gonna get out the board games. We're gonna kids love STEM stuff. We're gonna
Oh, yeah.
build stuff together. So it's one of those things of figuring out how do you engage and not just disconnect as a parent from it as well. 'Cause that's what kind of what they're watching. Like if a child only sees you consumed with who you like and follow and like all those things matter to you too much, they're reading off of that. They're still trying to learn from that example. Um, but also it's like, do you recommend certain things? Like as my kids have gotten older, I recommended channels to them, or I would let them recommend things to me, or they'd share reels or shorts or
Uh-huh.
whatever. Same thing with YouTube. Like
Right.
YouTube Kids limits most stuff, but parents still have to monitor it. Kids can get some really great content. They also can totally veg out and watch on and on and on and stream forever. It's having those real engagements of like, do they have a hobby they like to do? Do they have friends they hang out with in person? Are they getting to know? I mean, I think one of the things that helps kids the most is the idea of serving to help somebody else.
Right.
Man, when they get an opportunity, there's some books out for parents called phase guides. But I recommend anybody who works with the middle school, especially, these books go from birth all the way up through 18th through 12th grade. But every book is designed to be a journal for a parent to work through, and it includes a section of what work or responsibility is appropriate for this age. Because
Mhm.
parents are always asking, is this normal? Like when your baby's born and they're in whatever
Right.
percentile they
That's true.
are, like, is this normal or not? Like, I don't know. Like they're in the 100th percentile, they're a big baby, And so as a middle schooler, parents sometimes because we're forgetting what life was like for us as a middle schooler. Sometimes because it's so different because we didn't have all the social media stuff
Right.
that's come out. We don't know what normal is. And so this book helps you walk through like, here are some responsibility. Like a kid at this age should be able to babysit. A
Yeah.
kid at this age should be able to mow the lawn. And so it's like giving them those responsibilities. And then like I've watched middle schoolers get super excited telling me a story about getting to mow their neighbor's lawn. Like, but it was they actually got entrusted with the equipment. They
Mhm.
were taking care of somebody's property whether they got paid for it or not. Like, so like the idea of doing something for somebody else, they're being trusted with responsibility. Somebody has to show them how to do it. So there's a bit of a mentoring thing going on there. There's usually accountability. Like if they do a horrible job, they're going to hear about it.
Right.
Babysitting, it's those little steps. So those are just a few examples, but whether it's someone leading a club or being asked with a certain responsibility, those kind of things I think can really turn the tide of some of the anxiety stuff because they just downward spiral looking at only themselves, what they don't have and everybody else has,
Right,
what they
that's
don't
so
get to do and
true.
everybody else gets to do. And so it's like all of a sudden if it's they get to do these things and realize the value there and just having those conversations. Like one of the best things my wife has done for our kids is nothing's off limits. If you ask, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And there's been some awkward conversations because she's like open book and like I've got 2 boys and a girl, and they're in their 20s, and my daughter's 19 now, but when they were younger, like, the boys would kinda pick up on, "Okay, we won't ask that around mom because we don't want her explaining it to us?" And then my daughter would be like, "What's that mean?" And they'd be like, "No," here she goes. But we've tried to even as they're becoming young adults now,
Yeah.
continue that conversation, and for parents, I would say, h m whatever you can do to maintain open and ongoing conversation, and sometimes that might start with a text message, and then it might but continue that in face-to-face conversation because you miss body language and emotion and
Mhm.
tone, all those things are important, and the conversations you have with your kids, a side effect is you're teaching them how to have those conversations in the marketplace, and when you give them responsibilities and hard work to do, you're teaching them how to persevere, how to work through that. I tell students, when you follow Jesus, he's always gonna be with you, but it doesn't mean your life's gonna be easy. He actually says it might get harder.
Right.
And so as a student, they need to learn that. Like I just saw a report about Gen Z, a large percentage of them are getting let go from jobs within a few months of being hired because they're not doing the hard things and sticking to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like there's got to be more to that study than that because I know some Gen Zs that are amazingly hard workers and doing great. But I think about with younger generations, like sometimes we can try to protect them so much. They need some risk, they need some
Mhm.
opportunity, and they need to learn from failure. And so like, I know when I give a middle schooler an opportunity to do something, it may or may not be awesome, and it
Right.
may take some time, but it's that process of them owning something and doing something and feel like they contribute. They're a part of the family,
Mhm.
and they might tell you all they want to do is sit and play video games. But if they get to help cook a meal, if they get to help, like all of a sudden they're learning real life skills,
Yeah.
but they're also, for at least a little bit, thinking about somebody besides themselves and developing some skills and some tools that will help them navigate. They're still going to deal with issues that can cause anxiety and problems in life no matter what, but helping them early on will help build those tools up for later.
Right. No, I think so. I mean, it definitely goes with, I mean, love the Lord and love others. So, like
Yeah.
pretty much just that
Yes.
simple thing right there. I
Yeah.
mean, the Bible says it. It's easy. It's just that like having to have them do that and stuff. I mean, but if you think about any time you're in the dumps and then you go serve or do something, you never walk away being like, I just feel even worse. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like it
Yes.
does. Like serving other people does help.
Yeah.
It just
I mean, there's days working with middle school where I come in and I'm tired or I'm not feeling good or I've just had a long week and I was like, oh, I don't have energy for this. And then I'll walk away and I still might be exhausted,
uh-huh.
but I feel very fulfilled and thankful and sometimes convicted of like, wow, like my situation wasn't as bad as what I just heard from the student. What's going
Right.
on? And yeah, you realize what you have to offer versus just what you have going forward against you.
All right, it is. It's getting out of your mind and doing something for someone
Yeah.
else and stuff. Um, how do you, as you know, how do you teach a sixth grader their identity in Christ? Like, because it's that concrete plus abstract.
Yeah. I thought about this a lot,
I
and
thought about
I mean, I teach them all the time, but identity is one of the big deals, right? They're
yeah.
helping to figure it out, and when it comes to following, like, what's the difference between following Jesus and not? What difference does it make in my life? And the best thing I've come up with that I think makes sense to them is the adoption,
Hmm.
because it says in Genesis 1:27, every human being is created in God's image, the way Adam and Eve were. We all, and that's always hard to explain to students that like, in the image of God. Well, what's that mean? Because we don't look like him, and we think
You're
of
right.
image as what you look like,
Yeah.
So, explain to them, and no, 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 it's not like you look like your parents. It's more like if you are adopted and you act like the family that adopted you, that's the kind of idea of us with God, that we
Hmm.
have that similarity in our compassion, our wisdom, our love, our kindness, our sense of justice. Like all those things are how we reflect God's image. But that's just the beginning. And then when you follow Jesus, now you're adopted into the family. Now you're part of the royal family.
Yeah.
And so that truth should change how we live because parents today celebrate gotcha day, when they adopted their kids and it was
Oh,
finally
I was like, what's
official.
that day? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that was a Aw.
And so it's really cool of like this is like they have a birthday and they have the gotcha day where now you're
Hmm.
officially part of the family. And so with students like celebrating that day they got baptized and like this is my big moment, but helping them as a sixth grader, part of it is walking through like, do you understand sin is disobeying God? Do you understand that like you're responsible for that? Like it's no
Hmm.
longer somebody else's thing to deal with, it's yours. And Jesus came in and instead of you being punished, he took that and he got punished and set you free. Like, do you understand God's grace? It's not fair. And yes, we can take advantage of it. But the way we can live being set free, it's hard. Like, they haven't, with a high schooler, a lot of times they've experienced sin in a way that deeply they feel guilt.
Yeah.
With a middle schooler, they don't always feel guilt. Like they're not always now sometimes, but they don't always process. So sometimes you're kind of explaining to them the idea of freedom and redemption are new concepts for them to kind of really process. And they might say, well, I'm free. Like I live in America, I'm free. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, do you understand what that means? What rights you have that people don't have in other places? Do you know that people fought for you to have that freedom? Like there's a cost involved,
Hmm.
and so it's unpacking some of that at a deeper level. But the adoption thing is the biggest one of God's brought us into his family. Ephesians 2, that we've been saved by grace through faith, that you earn your grade in school. We've talked about like Romans with the wages of sin is death. Wages kids don't know. But if I say paycheck, oh,
Yeah.
you
All
have
right.
a job, you get a paycheck. Yeah. Well, but the gift of God is eternal life. And we'll talk about if you're walking down the street and someone hands you a present, is that suspicious or is that normal? And they're like, it's suspicious. Like, what's in the present? And I was like, doesn't matter what's in the present. Like, it's suspicious, right? But I was like, but if you're at a house and it's your birthday, you get a present. Is that normal? And they're like, that's normal. Well, what's the difference? Well, the people there know me. It's like, that's the thing with God. He doesn't give us a gift because of anything we've done. It's because of how much he loves us. When you get adopted, it's not because you filled out a checklist and made the qualifications to be adopted. It's
Yeah.
somebody wanting to raise you and care for you and do what you can't do for yourself. And so for me, that's the one metaphor that keeps coming back as this helps anchor very abstract truth into a
Mhm.
concrete reality of they're familiar enough with adoption, or they have friends who've been adopted, or they know what that means. Maybe they even understand what it means to adopt a pet. Like, so that
Yeah.
idea connects with them and that gets them started. And what I
Mhm.
always tell parents is I encourage students when they decide to follow Jesus to write a letter to themselves explaining why they're doing it. Because a lot of times as teenagers, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what it meant to be forgiven of my sins. And I was like, well, but look at what you did know.
Yeah.
Think about you, and you should know more by now. Like, you should be growing. We hope you
Right.
are.
Yeah. That's the goal.
And because I always say, like, I don't remember everything. Because people will say, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you make people feel.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but I don't remember everything Mrs. Searle taught me in kindergarten, but I can read today, and that started with her teaching me the alphabet.
Yeah.
I know colors, and that started with her teaching me some basics, and that was a building block, and we all build on that. Just like hopefully what we're saying at church is building on what parents are saying at home.
Yeah.
It comes together. So with sixth grade, same thing. We know we're not going to get them to understand everything in a deep way, but we're beginning them in that process, and adoption seems to be the best way to communicate that right now that I found.
Right. That is, I mean, that is a great, like, metaphor for it and stuff. Because it's, I mean, I was just thinking when I was looking over the questions, I was like, shoot, I don't even know how to, like, I don't even know how to, like, honestly talk to, like, some adults. Like, I lead a small group and it's more like younger
Yeah.
Christians and stuff. And they just, like, I mean, last Thursday, they just learned, like, what, like, discipleship meant. And
Yeah.
they did, like, what I did with, like, the 808 beats kind of
Yes.
thing, where they were like, yes. Cause I
Nodding
was
their
like,
heads. Yeah.
remember, like, the pastor talked about, like, what did you think it was? And I mean, like, they were just like, I don't know, really did. I just, like, nodded my head. I was like, okay, I'll figure it
Yeah.
out later and stuff.
Yeah.
But I find myself difficult just explaining to like adults exactly. Like, I mean, I get it and I can explain it. And the best way also is just to like tell your own story
Yeah.
for especially for like adults and stuff. But yeah, no, I think that's such a great metaphor, the adoption of
Yeah.
it.
And I found with students and adults, the resources at Bible Project are really
Oh,
helpful
right.
too. Like,
Oh,
those have been really good. And not always does it get to the level I need for middle school, but a lot of times it's a great starting point. There's been a couple of times, like there was a video recently I wanted to show. I think it was about Messiah. Like, what that's a big concept to explain to middle
yeah.
schooler. But the video started with like creation, it was making this connection. And it had the animated Adam and Eve, and you could see them from behind, and they were naked. And I was like, nope, I will lose all my middle schoolers in the first 30 seconds. I gotta find
Right.
a different resource. So, but yeah,
That's
it's just thinking through
funny.
like what tools are out there that help you to explain things and
Mhm.
understand things. And um, and like I said, just it's a lifelong. I'm constantly learning because like when I work with fifth or eighth graders, every year 25% of my group moves up into high school, and 25% moves in from elementary.
Right.
And so I have to kind of go, okay, what does this group get? Like, where are they at? And you're kind of starting over again with part of your group. And I think with parenting, it's the same thing. Like, every kid is different.
Oh my gosh,
It just gets
right.
multiplied when you're working with students in a classroom or at church, and you're like, okay, this group's gonna be different than the last group, and the individual kids are different in this room. And but it is, I think sometimes it's that calling them out of, do you really like, I'll on my test will be, hey, okay, if you had a friend walk in who doesn't go to church, how would you explain what we just talked about to them?
Right.
And if they can do it, and that works at any age,
Right, but
right?
that's a great,
How would
yeah.
you put what I just said in words that you would share with a coworker or a neighbor or a friend? And if they can do it, then they get it. If not, you need to keep working with them to help them understand it. And that's what's been a test for me where I'm like, I think everybody's got it. And then I'll hear them explain it and go, no.
But
Like,
that
no.
is such a great, I mean, like, if you can teach it, then you know it kinda
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
So that's a great, I mean, like, that is such a great thing because it's so many, I mean, like, I can just think of myself when I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I know that," and then when it actually came down, like, you have to know these things because it's gonna take you when you do hit a trial and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I always say, like, pain or suffering, it either perfects someone's faith or it destroys their faith.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, and I think, but if you like what you do, are like, "Okay, explain it to me." If someone wants to come in, it's like they make it their own words and they make it where they understand it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they meditate, like what we're supposed to do with the Bible, like,
Yeah.
we read it and we don't just read it and be like, "Okay, that sounds great." Like, we meditate on it, we think about it, we like
Yeah.
chew it up, we make it our own,
Yeah.
and I love that you do that where it's like, "Okay, now explain it to me."
Yeah.
Uh-huh, because I found myself, like, sometimes I remember working in the hospital and someone was like, "What's the gospel?" And I was like, "Oh." Like, I mean, at the time, I was, like, 28 years old, and I was like, what is the gospel? Like, I know what it is, but then, like, no one ever
Yeah,
challenged me to be like,
yeah,
"Okay, I taught you the," like, "You've gone," 'cause I went to Christian school, I've done
yeah.
all this, and, like, when someone actually asked me what the gospel is, I was like, "Oh,
How do
I
you
don't know."
explain it? Yeah, it's a concept that you hear it, you're like, "I know what that is,"
Yeah.
and then someone that wants you to explain it, and, "Oh, I gotta think that through," and, yeah, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, so but, like, you challenging someone and, like, when they're younger, that makes it more
Yeah,
real. I mean, that makes it better because then it just builds and builds and builds. Because I think
yeah,
in society, what I've seen, we're going to a Christian school and stuff, we were bombarded, like, I even my own self, like, I was great, like, the Bible, like, like, "Here's this," like, "Turn to this chapter," like, dude,
yeah.
I was right up, "Amen, got it," you know what I mean? But then
Yeah,
when stuff really happened, no one ever, like, when I was younger, ever, like, challenged me, like, "Put this in your own words," and stuff.
yeah,
So when stuff got bad and stuff, I mean, I did have my faith, but I kinda veered away from it because I honestly didn't know it, like, I knew the stories,
yeah,
but I didn't chew on it, I didn't
yeah,
marinate on it, you know
for
what I mean?
sure.
Yeah,
Well, we talk about, Psalm 119 with hiding God's word in our heart, with the idea of knowing it, memorizing it.
right?
It's popular with younger kids to do memorization. As
Uh-huh.
they get older, it becomes less popular. But we've talked about. I've got a friend of mine that has two young kids. One's preschool, one's elementary, and his wife was sick, and he sent them to school with the wrong backpack. And so
Oh
even
my
at that young age, they were like, "I don't have the right things," like, it was a big deal, and I talked to
yeah,
students about, "This is why we want you to read and memorize scripture. It's like putting these in your backpack so that you've got what you need, when the time comes." Like, you may not know, or it may not be for you.
mhm,
Maybe you're dealing with this truth that Jesus said, "I will always be with you." You're like, "Yeah," but you have a friend who's feeling lonely, like, "Hey, did you know that God's with us?" So, like,
yeah,
you don't know when you're gonna need those things, and as I tell them, that's why we read and study it, so that we have that in our mind and our heart, like, as a believer, the Holy Spirit helps us understand those things, but the Holy Spirit doesn't it's not like you prayed to know all the answers for a test you didn't study for, you
yeah,
know? It's like,
right,
how much have you read and studied so you're prepared to share? That's we were challenging our students recently with First Peter 3:15 with worship Christ as Lord of your life, but always be ready to give an explanation for the hope that you
right,
have when somebody asks and with gentleness and respect. And so the idea was hopefully you're living in such a way that people see a difference in your life
right,
and then you don't have to have all the answers, but just be ready to explain what you do know. And so it's like, well, so what are you reading and studying so that you are prepared? As a middle schooler, like one of my favorite things is if a kid comes up and has a question because they've been reading something, it's like, yes, like this is
right,
this is the
yes,
moment,
you're reading,
Yes. And
yes,
so
right,
just helping them make those steps and knowing that it's a process, it's a journey, but yeah, they never know when they're gonna need what they face. And so helping them with that. And helping different kids. Like we have some kids that because of their reading level or reading disability, it's a challenge. Like reading scripture is not as easy for them as it is for others.
mhm,
And so we found a big hit with the Streetlights Audio Bible, where they can listen to it, but it's not just there's audio books and audio Bibles where it's just somebody reading and it
yeah,
can get real boring. But this audio Bible is different voices for each person. So it's almost like you're listening to the soundtrack of a movie.
yeah,
And it's got a hip hop soundtrack behind it. So it's fun to listen to.
right,
And so I've been showing kids, like, hey, did you know you can listen to a chapter in 5 minutes? Like one track is like one chapter.
yeah,
If you spend 30 minutes listening to this, you'll have read like six chapters of the Bible. And suddenly, kids who are nervous about reading feel empowered of like, oh, now I have this tool. I found out about what's called the Easy English Bible that has, I think, a vocab of like 1,200 words, and it was written for people either with special needs or where English is not their first language.
mhm,
So it takes out like all the idioms, so all the creative language is gone, which people would have a hard time with some of that.
right, oh, I can only think right now in
But
my
when
mind, I'm
people
like,
people
"Oh
that don't
gosh, people,"
have the ability to do abstract
right,
thought, or think about if English is not your first language, when you throw out an idiom in English, it may not translate to your language, so you gotta kinda process that. So it's a great tool. So I'm always looking for tools, like, how do we help these students out? What do we do
right,
to communicate to them? What visual can I put up there to help them understand? Like, even a map of showing them the all I know Bethlehem, I know Jerusalem. No, you know the names. You have no idea when Jesus says when the gospel writer says Jesus and the disciple went from here to here, you don't realize that was like a 3-day journey. Like they didn't hop in a car and get there in an hour.
right,
They had to walk it out. And so it's constantly thinking through how do we teach that stuff effectively? How do we help them out? So they can grow and understand things at their level and then continue to move them up with older age
right.
groups.
I mean, I love that you do that because even though, like, to some people, they hear that and they're like, "Well, does that really matter?" But to me, I hear them like, "Yes," because the 3 days, I hear that and, like, it teaches, patience. It teaches that, these
Yeah,
small things, like, you look at it and you're like I mean, I always used to be like, "Why is there so many, like, name?" Like, you go into, like, Matthew, and there's like, boom, 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 name, after this person, at the f
yeah,
and I used to be like, "This is the silliest thing ever." Like, I don't really care. I don't know these people. Half of them I don't know how to pronounce. But then,
yeah,
like, the older I get and I look at it, I'm like, "Okay, these people matter." Like, this is God is so in the small details of it that he gave us these names. And then some of these names actually, like, you didn't know about if you research them. Like, it's like,
their
"Oh,
story.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
story and stuff."
yeah,
But, like, I love that you don't just, like, he went to Bethlehem, you did that. You didn't just be like, take their word on. You're like, "Let me show you," because
yeah,
3 days, 3 imagine you walking for 3 days.
right,
Like,
yeah.
to a I
They
mean, like
probably have never done anything like
yeah, right? But then it's
that.
also, like, I think it helps me later in my life to be like, I think about them like, Jesus walked for 3 days, like, that's like, I'm a big person right now with patience and stuff because 'cause I'm reading a
Okay,
lot in the Bible about it and stuff, and just how, like, I get, like, it'll be, like, a month, and I'll be like, "Ah, Lord, I still don't know, like, what you want me to do, like, how you want me to do this and stuff."
yes,
And then the people in the Bible, the way, like, 40 years, 20 years, walked 3 days to a
yes,
place, and
yeah,
I'm like, the Lord, like, right there teaches me. So, like, that could what you planted in a 6th grader could later on when they're 36 be like,
sure.
"The Lord walked for 3 days to just get to Bethlehem."
Well, and for those concrete thinkers,
Uh-huh.
it's helping them move from the children's ministry understanding to, a student ministry. It's
Mhm.
helping them understand these are real places. These are real, like, this
Right.
is real, and, like, even understand the difference between, like, when it says Jesus had to go to Samaria,
Mhm.
it was like, well, yeah, the direct line was straight, but most Jews avoided that path. They went out of their way. When you show them on a map, kids are like, why would they do that? And it was like, oh, is there anybody in your school you avoid? Is there anybody in your community you avoid? You have this great lesson
Right.
that you don't get from just reading the text. You need to show them on a map because they're not familiar with it.
Mhm.
Like, if you talk to students in your city about your city, there's things that they'll know that somebody who's not from the area wouldn't understand. Um, and I love that with helping kids understand things in scripture where it's a real place, a real person, and also but then helping them understand, but Jesus told a bunch of stories that he just made up to help illustrate his point. Sometimes your creativity can be used in the same way to help somebody understand something. But yeah, it's just helping them to grow where they're at, and patience is such a huge part of middle school ministry, because sometimes you're like, okay, like the whole "Are we there yet?" With kids in the
Right.
vehicle. Like,
Right.
we're not gonna get there. Like, we're on the journey. Our goal is not to get to the destination. We're just to get them the next step
Right.
and keep hanging them off and help them grow, and yeah, that's a
I
big
mean,
deal.
to be honest, we'll get there at the end when we meet the
Yes.
Lord. Like, we're
Yes.
never
Yeah,
are we there? We never fully arrive until the
for
time we
sure.
meet. So it goes both ways. That's so funny. But yeah, no, I appreciate because it's just so crazy. Like, the older you get and the more you're intentional about, like, this, like you said, like, you had to go around, and some people are like, "That's silly." Like, you can go straight across, but like how you also apply that you put flesh and bones to the scripture.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think it needs to, like you said, like, start in middle school and go on because
Yeah.
it keeps building, building. I mean, the Bible's living and breathing. Like, you read it today and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I just got that." Like, "Oh, okay. The Lord just
Yeah.
read me this morning." And he
Yes,
just
for
you're like,
sure.
"Okay, Lord, I
Yeah.
hear you."
Yeah.
But I love that you implement them because I feel like that was something missing when I was growing up. Like, I knew all the Bible stories and I still do and stuff, but like no one ever put like flesh and bone to it. Like, why?
Yeah.
I knew he went around, but I was just like, no one was like, well, let's talk about that. They just breezed over it.
Yeah.
So it's good that you're doing that. Yes. What in middle school, like, what lies do you see middle schools believing? Like, cause something really, like, I feel like my own self, I struggle with, like, identity in
Mhm.
middle school is something when we're trying to figure out, like, who we are, like, we're going from, being a kid to now going, like, teenager to adult and stuff. What are lies that you see middle schoolers?
Yeah, the identity one is a big one, like,
Right.
partly that they have to have it all figured out,
Right.
because they do. I mean, I know I have a friend that his kids in elementary school had to know had to have an idea of what career they wanted to get into, because that would decide what college they went to, and that would decide what high school they went to, and they had to apply for the middle school they went to. So, like, they could go to the one that's in their community, but they could also apply to anything in the city based on what specific career path they wanted to
Mhm.
have as a 4th or 5th grader. And I was like, "Wow." they're just exploring it, at that point, they don't even know, and so students feel that pressure. I gotta have this figured out, what I'm gonna do later. Am I gonna be a professional athlete? Am I gonna be a teacher? Am I gonna be a doctor? And it's like, just explore some things right now. So I think they believe the lie of having to have it all figured, or that people have it figured out. Because
Right.
how many college students are undeclared majors, like, or change their major?
Right, yeah.
And so for a middle schooler, and then I think the idea that things should be fast and easy, and AI has really driven some of that for them in recent years, but just that instead of taking time to wonder about something, they'll just go Google it or they'll ask their digital assistant, to find it for them.
Right.
Um, but then with that, they become experts at like shallow information in a lot of areas and not deep in one area.
Right.
And they believe the lie that's the way it should be. Like they don't you shouldn't slow down and know something in depth because why should I know that if I can look it up? And there's a point of that. There's also a point of like, yeah, but you should be something that you're a specialist and something that you're good at. I think sometimes they have this, I'm not, it's the whole, maybe this has not changed throughout history, but like, I'm not good enough. I'm not valued by some, I'm not loved. That, I mean,
Mhm.
they deal with that. And we try to show them through God that, yeah, it's not based on, like I try to say it with, we try to have them look at the words of the Bible more than at their selfie camera or at their social media feed to see where their real value lies, their identity. Because if they're only looking through their screen to see where their identity is, they are going to believe lies. They're going to believe, I mean, as much as people don't want to talk about that middle school age group because it's awkward for them,
Yeah.
marketing spends a lot of money on that age group because
Right.
the last report I saw, this age group controls the largest amount of discretionary income because they really pinpoint where their parents are gonna put money. Like, are they gonna go to Disney or Universal? Are they gonna go
Right.
to Florida or California? Are they gonna fly or drive? Like, are they gonna eat at this restaurant? Like, all these decisions, the kids aren't spending their own money, but they're influencing where the parents spend the
Mhm.
money. Well, then they become the subject of all this marketing stuff, and whether it's through a K-pop song or it's through a movie, like all of a sudden, all this focus is on this age group, and it's not people who genuinely know them.
Mhm.
Like one of the things I talk to adults about is if you struggle with being able to like middle schoolers, my guess is probably you had a bad middle school experience, and probably all you know is what you see on the news about middle schoolers. If you actually knew a middle schooler by name, I don't think you would feel the same way because you would know their story, you would know them personally. And so that's a big change of, uh, some of the lies they believe, they won't stop believing until someone helps them believe the truth.
Mhm.
And so until a middle schooler is seen and known and loved by an adult without an agenda that genuinely cares about them, they're going to feel like they've got to earn that by achieving something. And so like that's why we love small groups, the idea of community for middle schoolers. When they're in a group of students their age who know them and know their story and have some adults in that group that they can trust and lean into, that begins to change. Now they begin to figure out what's truth and what's a lie. Like, otherwise, they don't know.
Yeah.
This is just what's like, I'm supposed to have the latest and greatest. I mean, every company from clothing to technology is always trying to upsell you this year what you already bought last year.
Right.
And for kids, it's like, "Oh, I know I got the latest and greatest, but that was 2 months ago. Now this new thing came out." And the whole idea of discontentment, it's a huge part of marketing. And they believe that, like, "Yeah, our family doesn't have a cool car or a cool house, or, we don't live in the right neighborhood." They have no control over those things, but they feel some worth and they feel some lies of like, "My identity, my value comes from our address or comes from the car that I show up at school in, or it comes from the brand of clothes I have or what level of athletic achievements I can make." And no, your identity comes from Jesus. He died for you. You're made in God's image. That's your real identity. That's the truth. Everything else flows out of that. And
Right.
man, if they could see that God's given them certain abilities and understand, like Paul's teaching about the church, and we're all different parts of the body,
Mhm.
you're not going to have all the same gifts your friends do, but you shouldn't. We all need each other. We need those different skills. And I like to talk about that I get to show up on stage and I get to talk to groups, but I also love to encourage and train others how to do that. I'm not as great one on one as my wife is because she's more introverted.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't want to be on stage, doesn't want any attention like that, but she will listen to you and get your, and like we need both types of people in the church. And
Right.
so that's just been a big journey with students is, yeah, they believe a lot of lies, but the conviction is for us as adults. how many of us are speaking truth into them to help them combat that? Like, they don't know unless someone's told them. They believe it, and it's, you've got, like, what is it? The Truman Show, there's a TV show, Paradise, where people are living in a fake world,
Right, I heard about this paradise.
and students are like that, where they
Mhm.
believe that this is the way it's supposed to be until someone shows them a peek behind the curtain, almost like a Wizard of Oz kinda thing,
Yeah,
where
right.
it's like, do you know the truth? Do you know that tech companies like right now there's all these ads from Instagram about parental controls and safety. They don't actually Meta doesn't care about kids. Like from a company standpoint, they got in trouble for how much they were doing to make kids have bad habits, and
Right.
this was the punishment, was to do these commercials. And so but it's like for us as adults and parents, we've got to be mindful of that and help kids understand the truth so they're equipped to deal with the lies they
Right.
face. Because they're gonna face it, whether it's from a friend that tells them something that they just made up or heard, or it's rumor, or it's something that comes across their feed or an ad. They need to be able to have the truth to combat that, and if they don't, then they're gonna fall to those lies.
Right, that's so true. I mean, there's so much stuff you said that's so great, but I do believe definitely like my son who's about to turn 7, like we had the longest time because he wanted a Nintendo Switch for the longest time.
Yeah,
And we were just like, not like I didn't feel that it was appropriate just for like his developmental and like we already had trouble like trying to get him off TV, like,
yeah,
like when we had to go places. But then like his cousin got a Nintendo Switch first and he got during Christmas and Vancouver like 2 years ago was like, "Well, what did I do wrong? Like, why didn't I get a Nintendo Switch? Like,
yeah,
did I, like, I thought I listened." I started and I'm like, "Honey, you did nothing wrong." Like, mom, like I had to like explain this whole thing and then like because you
yeah,
have just because you don't have a Nintendo Switch doesn't define like you did bad or good and
right,
like the whole but that is so true. Like they put so much worth in like they need to this. Like currently right now, like my son keeps telling me that everyone has roadblocks. We're not going to get roadblocks and his friend is like the owner of Roadblocks and all this. They live in
yes.
this like magical. I'm like, your friend is not the owner of Roadblocks. Like, but like it's such like, but they're
Yeah,
like, no, because this is like,
yeah.
this is what's happened. They do. They live in this like
Their
world of
closest friends are everyone.
yeah, everyone.
Yeah,
Everyone has
yeah,
it and stuff.
yeah,
Or like they're watching, my son loves watching. He doesn't do it anymore because we caught him watching not the best YouTube videos, but like he would watch like some of the Mr. Beast. Like I sit and watch every single one of it. And some of Mr. Beast's like vacations are so cool. I will watch them because I'm like, oh, interesting.
yes,
But like he was then being like, well, I need to go. We need to go to this place. We need to do this. Like, and
yes,
if we don't, this is not like, why aren't we doing that and
yeah,
stuff? And like you had to like, and you do have to. The thing is, it's so hard. It's annoying, but you have to be so intentional, and you have to legit explain everything. And like you have to like bring
yeah,
it back to the Lord and stuff. And it is like I do find like I get it when people are like, I don't want to like I just want to, give them this and now I have to explain it and like, like just give it and then like
you
no,
can't as a parent.
you
As a
can't.
good parent,
And
you
I
can't.
get it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm like, dude, I get it. But also like the Lord gave us these children are gifts and they're not ours. We're there to steward them. And like,
yeah,
like I get it, but like this world is full of suffering and you have to suffer and tell your explain your child like this thing, like
yeah,
what's going on. But I like to touch on the like people when you tell them about middle school and they're like, oh, like that's like what they like all they know is like what they hear on, the news
yeah,
or what, like their middle school was and stuff. Cause my
yeah,
middle school sucked. And I was like, when I was like, but I always had this weird drawn because it sucked so bad. I was like, I want to make it better kind of thing.
yeah,
But definitely older people and what they hear in the news about middle schoolers,
yeah,
oh gosh, and
yeah,
stuff. They think like the world's ending and stuff. And it's like, no, they
yeah,
honestly, like what you said, they just want to be seen, heard, and loved. Like when you first started, where you were like, like if they know like you care and that like they like you like them,
yeah,
then they'll like you. And it's so true. Like when I do like the middle school or like the older elementary, like the sixth grade guys and girls will like just bombard me. I'm like, dude, I gotta go talk to other people. Like, stop. I mean, like, I love that you're telling me about your whole day, but there's like 3 other people I need to make
yes,
contact with. Like, glad
yes.
you're here. What's going on? But it's so true. Just if you like show interest, like, oh, I love your new hair. Oh, how was your Like, just remembering
Yep,
the small stuff, and then they
yes.
just like won't stop it. They won't leave you alone. They're like my own children.
Yeah, if you pay attention, they'll tell you a story, and the next time they'll initiate it,
Uh huh.
and you got this relationship. And man, with the middle schoolers, like one of the things I see is adults that just go. I mean, adults can use social media for good and bad,
Oh,
but
I
some
mean,
of these
yes.
community groups that talk about the schools and what's going on.
Oh,
And one of the things I had a pastor several years ago that challenged us with. People say if your church wasn't in the community, would the community notice? And people always want to say, well, of course they would. But he was like, "So what do you do?" Like he said, for youth ministry, like what are you doing in your community that makes a difference?
Right.
Because so often youth ministries will go to the local schools and they'll want to use the facility, or they'll want to donate things, but they've not really asked what the school actually needs help with.
Right.
And so his challenge was, if you want to make a difference, figure out what you want to do, and then go do that to help your community. So I reached out to the local school, and my kids had gone through. They'd already moved out of the middle school, and so I just said, "Hey, we're around the corner from you. Like we're geographically close. This is the age group that I work with. I would love to be helpful to you." So I just gave them this proposal of, if I could give you at most 1 day a week of my work schedule, what could I do that would be helpful for you?
Mhm.
And all of them came back with substitute teaching. Like there's always a need for subs, and so I was like, "Oh, that okay, I could go do that." And so what I found was my experience in youth ministry made me a great fit for that. But then I also began to see that some of the I would almost call it paranoia of people about what schools are like.
Oh,
I began to walk the hallways and be in the classrooms, and I was like, I'm seeing a lot of kids behaving perfectly normally. I'm seeing teachers that are working low paying jobs to invest and educate kids. It's actually not a horrible place. Like, it's not what people make
yeah.
it out to be, and every school has its bad stories, there's all kinds of struggles, but part of it is, like, I had a teacher that said, "Man, if every parent volunteered 1 day a year, like, we'd take care of all of our sub problems, and they would understand the real picture of what goes on in the school." And I was
Right.
like, "That's accurate," because, like, being in the classroom, being in the hallways, seeing those students and what and they even in the classroom, like, when they walk in with a sub, I get respect. Sometimes it's not fair because 'cause I'm a guy. Like, I get as a guy walking as a sub, but a lot of those kids, it's relational. They know
Uh-huh.
me, but now I see kids in public, and I now don't always know if I know the kids from church or from substitute teaching,
Right.
but just giving them attention, showing them, trying to help them out, like, that makes you either part of the problem and you're complaining about it, or you be part of the solution.
Mhm.
And so, with those middle schoolers, me jumping in, just subbing every once in a while helps our local school out, and that's helpful. So and for me too, like, my kids are in their, late teens, early 20s now. That helps me keep a pulse on culture and what's going on. I can kinda see
Right.
clothing-wise, hear language-wise.
Clothing wise.
Language for sure, and, like,
Right.
they
Whew.
love it when I'm like, "Okay, I just heard this word, what does it mean?"
I know, right?
And
Oh my
sometimes
god.
when I get the response of like, "Oh, you shouldn't say that,"
I
I'm
know,
like,
right?
"So nobody else should be saying it here today."
Right?
Okay, so, yeah, and I love just spending time with the teachers and the staff
Uh-huh.
because they're investing in the same age group that I've given my life for, and, like, they get it,
Mhm.
and we get to encourage one another and challenge each other, and, yeah, it's been really, really helpful to walk through that and be in their world, 'cause you've gotta know them personally and know their story, and then it's less of like, generation versus generation. It's more of individual people I really know.
Right, that's so true. I mean, oh, 100%. I mean, like, I'm just clocking it right now because it's so true. I mean, like, there's so many things I wanna double click on and stuff, but, like, I when you first told me that when we met for coffee and that you volunteered at the school, I love because it's when I was in the big dilemma, like, I don't know with when you became, like, put your kids into school, but, like,
Mhm.
now it is frowned upon putting your children in public school. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize until Vancouver needed to go to, like, kindergarten, like, like, why aren't you putting your child either homeschool them or in a Christian school? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that deep, and it
Yeah.
was oh, it put me so much anxiety and stuff. Because currently right now he goes public school, but, like, it was a thing until I listened to, like, someone sent me or, like, I think I stumbled across it, a YouTube thing of a debate with, a Christian, like, woman named Jen Wilkins, and then another guy
Okay.
that's like she's for public school, he was for homeschool.
Yeah.
In the debate, like I was like, I guess I'll watch this because currently right now I'm anxious Annie about this. And I was like, the Lord's trying to say something to me. But like she said, she's like, okay, even if you don't decide to put your child in public school, we are called to be the light in our community. So if you're
Yeah.
going to put your child in a Christian school, okay, but you should then volunteer at public school or something. Like you are still supposed to be that light.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, look at him. Because that's so, I mean, it convicted me even to be like, okay, even if I choose, a Christian school, like I still like, called to be the light in this community and
Yeah.
stuff. And like, so what you're doing, like, is definitely like, what the Lord calls us to do and stuff. But then I also love that you said like it's just such like generational war. Like you see stuff on TV and people are like, "Oh, public school is horrible. Like
Yeah.
this, like you shouldn't do that." Like or generations be like, I don't know, they be thinking weird stuff, and they believe a lot of stuff is black and white, and they never
Right.
put a story to, like, why this person decided to do this, why this person struggles with this and stuff.
Yeah.
They never get in, and get dirty and stuff, which is what the
Yes.
Lord calls us to do.
Yeah. Well, and after, over 25 years of youth ministry, I spent a lot of time in both public and private schools. And anybody who thinks by going to a private school, you're getting rid of the problems, I was like,
Right?
no, it's just different. Like, and some of them are the same problems. I've seen kids struggle, and I've seen kids thrive in both environments. I've
Mhm.
seen families that send kids to different schools based on what's the best fit for their kid.
Yeah.
But it is a matter of like, no matter what school your kids go to or they're homeschooled, like, how are you still having that conversation, engaging them, helping them? Um, Socially developing them with other friends. And like in for me, subbing is a way, not only do I get to help the kids in this school, but for the Christian teachers, I get to encourage them. Like
Right.
I get to walk alongside them. I get to see them being light every day when I just pop in every now and then.
Mhm.
But I've also noticed I get watched by the not believing teachers
Right.
to see, like, am I gonna come in? I'm a pastor. Do I have an agenda? What am I gonna do? And I've earned respect from them by like, no, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to be in the classroom. I don't have an agenda with it.
Right.
Now, if kids come to our church and feel more comfortable because they know me from the school, that's an awesome benefit. But I'm genuinely here to help you out. And at the same time, then yeah, I do get to see what the school is actually like, what the teachers are actually like. I get to see the lessons, the textbooks, be in the room. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually not like they're struggling to do this job. They don't get paid real well for.
Right.
And then we're attacking them on social media like that's going to make things better.
Right.
When if you walk in the school, like, yeah, do you have to go through some work to be in the school? You should, like background check and training and all that
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
But then the difference it makes to be, I mean, in elementary school, I would help out with class parties. In middle school, and now I sub. And it's just one of those, how can you help out? I know parents that volunteer so many hours for band or show choir, whatever that club is. Like, yeah, if you get in there and get to know real kids and real teachers in the school, that can make a difference. And with those middle schoolers, again, it's like, they love seeing me on their turf, like, they love seeing me in their world,
Yeah.
and it blows their mind. A, they don't think I work anyways, I just work on Sundays. So, like, of course I have time to substitute teach. But it helps me to like, I learn from the teachers, like, tools and tips and how they navigate, the classroom, how they
Mhm.
help students. I see the ones that are really good with helping the difficult, but what kids would call, the difficult kids, I see them how they help them to succeed and to grow, and I'm like, "Okay, I can learn from that. It's a tip I can learn," and I just constantly being willing to learn from somebody else. The same thing with parents. Like,
Mhm.
I don't there are negative examples you see in the news, but most parents feel guilty that we haven't done a good enough job
Right.
and want to be a better parent.
Right.
And all of us are better at different areas. So if we could just help each other out and support each other instead of attacking each other, man, that's going to help these middle schoolers out. Because
Right.
every family that has kids at some point is going to go through the middle school years. And like, I would tell parents, just like kids need community, you need community. Like, if you don't have other adults, other parents that you're connected with that can remind you this is normal, it can help you out, like, that's a big miss for you. And I would encourage parents, look for parents who've had middle schoolers. Maybe their kids are in high school now, maybe they're in college or they're out of high school. What can they help you with that you're getting ready to navigate? Especially like if you're a parent and your kid's in their last year of elementary school, find a parent who their kid is in their first year of middle school because they can directly tell you what to not be worried about, what to get ready for, how to help
Mhm.
them. Some of the best tips we got for our kids as they entered middle school, entered high school, were from parents who had just gone through that the previous year. And it's like, yeah, we've got this great community. Let's lean into that and help each other out.
Right.
Um, and not miss out on those opportunities. Not let's worry less and just get some help from people who can help us out. So
Right. I mean,
yeah,
that's so true. I think it's just so it cracks me up how we still struggle with community, like finding people. Like we have to.
yeah,
I mean, it's hard to be like to lay down your pride and just to ask for it. Like, be like, you need help. Like,
yeah,
it takes a village to raise
yeah.
children. Like it honestly does. And people are like, well, how'd they do it? Back then. I'm like, I think they had like a community. Like it was easier now. Where
Mhm.
now it's more like individualistic, plus we have social media to be like, "You should be doing this, you should be that," like,
Yeah,
doing that, where now it's like but, like you said, like, it's so easy, but it's also, like, hard to be like, "Okay, I do need a community," to realize I need a
yeah,
community,
yeah,
and I appreciate because I think that's so true. I mean, like, when I was struggling with, like, should I do, Christian or, private Christian or should I do I mean, definitely not homeschool. I know that just all met
Know your limits.
just plus my children are just not like that. Even during summer, they'll be like, "Can we go eat lunch and see people?" Like, they are all extroverted.
Yes. Yeah.
They're every single one is extroverted. And so they
Yes.
are all over the place all the time. But, like, just that, like, it would help me just to see, like, that video, and then I found someone that, in my mom's group
Mm,
that was doing
yeah.
public school, like, even in the same township, so then that, like, supported me be like, "Okay," because I was feeling like I was a bad mom otherwise and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's so crazy that it's been, like, so like, so I do believe, like, some people are, like, some kids should go private, some should go public, like, it's individual basis, and I take it, like, every year at a time.
Yeah.
Like, right now, there's been no problem, like, plus we have, like, today, like, after school, Vancouver has a, good news club, so, like, there is, like, people and they think it's so crazy when I tell them, like, "Oh, there is those resources?" I'm like, "Yeah, there is." Like, you'd
There
be
is.
surprised, but yes, there's still, like, I don't know, but in these streets, people are telling people that, like, public schools are just, like, full of whole bunch of heathens and that there's gonna be, like,
Yeah.
your child is thrown to the wolves, but it's like,
Right.
there is a whole bunch of good people, like, there is Christian
Yeah.
people in these schools.
Yeah.
It's just I mean, like, I think it just goes down to, like, the fear and not believing, like, the Lord's in control. I mean, like,
Right.
that's what I felt like
That's
it
hard.
was,
Yeah.
that, like, I had this fear being like, "I should do this," and literally felt like I was like, "No, I got you, like, this is, like choose this, and I'm with you, I will protect your child." Like, every
Yeah.
day I send them to school, I'm like, "Lord, they're in your hands, protect their" like,
Yeah.
"protect their heart and their soul, like, may they be a light, but also give them discernment," like, this whole thing, like, because 'cause
Yes.
they're not my they're yes, they're my children, I gave birth to them, but they are not mine, they're a gift.
Right.
And the Lord, like, we're supposed to steward them, and I believe, like, because my children are so extroverted, like, they really need to be in, like, a public school, and they, like and even the teachers come up and be like, "Vancouver is so sweet, he did great in Good News Club, he brings his Bi" like, he gets excited, he brings his
Yeah.
Bible even though he does not need to bring his Bible to
That's
Good News
awesome.
Club.
Yeah.
Like, he's just I mean, like, it's so beautiful to see, like, especially in their elementary school, and they're just so pumped about the Lord.
Yes.
And then also because like, the Lord calls us to have that childlike faith and stuff,
Yes.
and how we're like I find myself, like, sometimes afraid to be bold, and I do a Christian podcast, and I get nervous
Yes.
sometimes, and people are like, "Oh, what's your podcast about?" Like, and I have to be like, "Here we go, Lord," because it's
Yeah.
still it's still I mean, like, even though it's more accepted to be a Christian, it's still, like, when you say Christian, they still get, like there's still negative connotations just due to,
Yeah.
like, people and
You
stuff.
don't know what their experiences were, what
Yeah.
they've seen. Yeah, same kind of thing, and someone at one point, I heard say that we're not raising kids, we're raising adults, and so it's like, if you want your kid to be independent and to function in society after high school, you gotta give those opportunities, whether they're homeschool, private school, or public
Yeah.
school, those opportunities to go out to make some friends. And I challenge middle school students all the time. Yeah, you should have both Christian friends and non-Christian friends. Like, you've got people that you're an example to,
Mhm.
and people that you are encouraged by and help you with your faith.
Right.
And I said, even as an adult, like, for me, as soon as they ask me what my job is,
I know, right?
then I'm like, "Okay, either we're gonna have a great conversation or it's gonna stop right now,"
Right.
um, and that because I even just trying to work through, like, I'll ask people like, "Oh, like, what'd you do this weekend?" And, see whether or not church comes
Mhm.
up, and they ask me, it's like, "Oh, well, we had church Sunday morning." "Oh, yeah, where do you go?" And then when work comes up, I'm a pastor. It's one of those, I almost want them to not know that up front, because students already think, like, I get paid to be a Christian, and, like, I work one day a week, and like, "What kind of a job is this?"
Oh my god, that cracks me
And they
up.
don't know that, like, when I talk to middle schoolers, they don't realize not everybody would choose that age group, like,
Yeah.
they just think, "Why wouldn't you?" This
Right,
is this
yeah.
is us, and, but yeah, so I try to encourage parents with that, find community, know real things, but that whole being engaged with your kids, like, no matter
Right.
what they're doing, having those ongoing conversations, checking in with them. Yeah, it sounds great to, like, pass off a device or hand them off to a teacher, but
Right.
that's one of the biggest mistakes I think parents make with middle schoolers is, okay, they've got a teacher, that person can help them understand this, or they've got this YouTube channel that will help them understand this. And it's like, well, you are a parent. I'm a parent. It's not easy, but we still need to be engaged. And I look back at our three kids and going through the middle school years, and there's definitely things that I look back and go, wow, I wish we would have done this better, or I wish I knew then what I know now.
Mhm.
But I look back overall and go, okay, but we sought advice from other people. We checked out resources. We did the best we could with each kid, helping them in their own way, both with life in general and with their faith. And that's with parents. Like, Fortunately, unfortunately, every kid is different. Like, even if
Right.
you have more than one kid, you do a great job with one, the same things don't work with the second one, you know?
Mhm.
And you get to learn, like, I remember going, "Okay, once we get through one, we'll know a lot of the teachers." Oh, teachers retire, teachers move, they get different classes, so you gotta get to
Right.
know them, and, uh, yeah, it's just always learning and finding resources that can be helpful with that process, and, um I think one of my favorite fun resources is a book called Becoming Better Grown-Ups. And the outside of it is like almost like the golden books. It's that kind of hardback,
Uh-huh.
like outside, but it just walks us through. Brad writes this great book, and it just the wonder of being a child and helping parents to pause a moment. And yes, parenting is hard work, but it can also be a lot of fun if we stop and realize what it looks like through the eyes of a child and how to parent them in a way that meets them where they are.
Mhm.
Like, yes, they're gonna wanna play a game that we're tired of playing, or like when they're little, a song we're tired of listening to, but meet them where they are, and then you just grow with them. You move through that, and I would tell parents that it's never too late to improve your parenting. Like, my kids are 19 through 24. I'm still a dad. My wife is still a mom.
Right.
We're learning what that looks like in this season, to have young adult kids, but we're still growing what we started when they were younger. And as they get older, you can be honest with them about, yeah, we messed that up. Sorry, we dropped the ball on that one.
Right.
Like, that'll be some good therapy for you. That's our fault. We'll pay for that session. Um, but it's just knowing that you just don't give up. Like, one
Mhm.
of my wife's favorite sayings as a parent is just be better tomorrow. Like, you know what?
Right.
Yeah, today you can have good days and bad days. Try to be a little bit better tomorrow, and help your kids. And with middle schoolers, because so much is changing and because it is a challenge, give yourself some grace like you should give your kids,
Right.
and just try to be a little bit better tomorrow with them. And gosh, that changes everything. It changes your outlook on it and how you work through things, and helps those middle schoolers to move into the teen years with a healthy parenting setup, so
Right. So true. I mean, amen to that every day. It's a new thing. I mean,
Yes,
I feel that with the small kids. So
yes,
yes, it is.
yeah,
I mean, just even to yourself being like, that day didn't go too well. There's new mercies each day, like
yes,
Proverbs says.
yes,
All right.
for sure.
Thank the Lord. All right, we got to close up. But
Okay.
what would be, what is, if you could talk to all the middle schoolers, what would be something
Mm.
you would want to impress on them or about the Lord?
Gosh, I think about that a lot, actually. Like, if I could sit with them, and identity would be one piece.
Hmm.
Like, your identity is not something you'll be given an identity from other people, but your true identity is how God sees you. And then if you follow Jesus and get adopted into the family, like, you're given these gifts and abilities to contribute. Life won't be easy, but God will be with you. Like, all that wraps up in a big message on identity. Um, I would tell them it's okay to be a kid. Like, have some fun, play, like,
Right.
enjoy life. Not everything has to be so serious. I know some kids have to grow up because of circumstances, but usually what they miss is that childhood. So enjoy that time. Um, and friendships. Like, real friends you're with in person is so much more important than how many followers you have on social media, how many likes you have. I talked to a teenager recently he has a YouTube play button. He has the plaque because his shorts have gotten so many views. Um, but they're not like, there's very few people on there that he knows personally. They're just
Yeah.
people around the world that thought what he did was funny. And so that helped him get there. So as a middle schooler, like, not getting caught up in all those numbers and analytics, but like, who are your close friends? Who know you? Who hang out with you? Who've been to your house for a meal? Who have you gone out with? That kind of stuff will last. And they don't understand like how long that will affect.
Right.
But I have classmates that I was friends with through middle school and high school that didn't quite know what to make of me becoming a Christian and going that path of ministry. But then later reached out and I officiated their weddings. Like, I got to be a part of their life in different ways. And those were people that I knew face to face, and it's like,
Mm.
yeah, we can have people we connect with globally through social media, but you need to have real friends that you could sit and have a conversation with, go grab pizza, whatever. And yeah, that those there would be a bunch, but I would start with those for sure,
Those
with
are the
those
main
scores.
ones right
Yes,
now.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect.
Just, I mean, their identity is so much tied up with what they're trying to figure out.
Mhm.
And being a kid, it's okay to experiment and try different things. And then the idea of having some people around you that's your people that really support you, and that's changing in middle school. So knowing that's okay, that your friends will look different than they did in elementary school. That might change more in high school, but just continuing to have some friends that you are a friend for, Like, I always tell kids, I heard this a long time ago, but they should be the kind of friend they want to have. And so be that friend to other people, and then that will help support you for a long time in life.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, I believe that too, 100%.
Yeah.
It is. All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for
Oh,
coming
thank you.
on. This
You're
was so
welcome.
much fun.
I enjoyed it.
Yes, I love all the knowledge you gave us. I mean, definitely, like while you were speaking, I was like, "Oh, I need that. Oh, I need that too. Oh, that's a good
I'm
insight."
always learning, so I'm happy
I
to
know,
pass
right?
on. Yeah.
Amen. I'm always learning too, and it's great to have this podcast because then people I talk to, I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah."
Yes.
Like it helps me. I mean, it helps the viewers, but it also helps me too. I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting so much." I mean, it's just beautiful to like talk to people and
Yeah.
stuff, and like, because this is what it's meant to be. Like, we're supposed to be in community. We're made by
Yes.
like a communal God and
Yes.
stuff. So it's great to be that way.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. All right. Thank you guys. This is Image Bearers, and I'm Lacey Connor. Have a great day, guys.